Hello, my name is Guillermo Carmona. Thank you for joining me. I have a very short presentation for you regarding how to keep your children safe when they are online. The objective of this class is firstly to educate you about the potential dangers that children face when they're online on the internet, and also review some of the variety of devices that they're using to access the internet. And then we're also going to review some easy tips and ways that parents can take extra steps to keep their children safe while they are on the internet. As you may have heard on the news, our school district has recently seen an increase in the number of discipline problems like threats against schools and a variety of other issues. We just want to reach out to parents and make sure that you know how important it is that we work as a team and in partnership to make sure that our kids are safe online and in the real world. We're also seeing an increase in the number of other issues like anonymous social media groups, especially on Instagram, where students are sharing inappropriate content. Now, what do I mean when I say inappropriate content? Well, an example would be like posting videos of a fight between two students or several fights, posting sexually explicit pictures of other students, or even pictures that are not necessarily obscene, but they have a sexual connotation or a message or text. We've also seen an increase in academic cheating where students are actually posting the answers to tests. And of course, we're seeing a great deal of cyberbullying. Before we move on, I'd like to ask this very important question, and it's not a gotcha, but what is an appropriate age for a child to get their first smartphone? A fact, the average age when children get their first smartphone is 10 years old, a little bit older than 10 years old. Now, we're not recommending that as an age. This is just the average age, and it's good for us to understand as we move forward through this presentation how early children, students are being exposed to all the freedom of the internet. So how are kids getting onto the internet? Well, parents and the school district are both share the responsibility. The district has provided Chromebooks that have access to the internet. Parents are giving children access by giving them a tablet or a phone. The computers that we issued to students did have some web filters installed, but unfortunately they weren't 100% safe because students can circumvent, go around those protections by logging on to Wi-Fi networks or somebody else's hotspot. But did you know that aside from laptops, Chromebooks, and tablets, students can also access the internet using things like a smart television that you might be watching Netflix and Hulu on, and also using gaming systems like Xboxes and PlayStations and Nintendos. Those also have internet browsers that have access to the entire internet. And there's also positive and healthy reasons why kids would be on the internet. For example, watching appropriate videos and movies, exploring hobbies, learning about current events, connecting with friends and family, and playing appropriate video games. Those are all very good reasons to access the internet. But what we've learned is that without active parent supervision, it's too easy for children to access dangerous situations and content that's traumatizing and harmful. What can students access on an unmonitored smartphone, tablet, gaming system, or computer? The scary answer is everything. And when I say everything, it's everything. If you can find it in the real world, you can find it on the internet. In the next few slides, we're going to discuss what students are doing online and looking at some startling statistics about the tendencies that students have online and what they're accessing. There's an organization called Enough is Enough, and they've conducted some serious research on the internet habits of children. I recommend you look at their website for more information. I'll leave the link in the description below. I was surprised by this statistic. 50% of children ages 11 to 13, 65% of children 14 to 15, And 78% of children 16 to 17 report having seen pornography in one way or another. Either it was shown to them, sent to them, they searched for it, or they just accidentally stumbled upon it. It's very common to hear parents say, I know my child. They'd never look at something like that on the internet, or they know better than to look at inappropriate things on the internet. But there's a clear disconnect between what parents perceive and what children are actually doing. When they asked in a poll, 75% of parents felt that their child would not access pornography online. But when they asked the children of those parents, 53% of them said that they had, in fact, seen pornography. Self-generated images. Now, self-generated images can start like a selfie. That is an innocent self-generated image. I take a picture of myself and I upload it to my social media. For us older people, we probably are using things like Facebook, and students nowadays are using Snapchat and Instagram and TikTok to do this. But let's look at this statistic. Nearly 1 in 7 children from the ages of 9 to 12 shared their own nude photo last year, well, in the year 2020. That's 1 in 7, and the ages are 9 to 12-year-olds. And when we look at the other statistic, 71% of teen girls and 67% of boys admitted to sending sexually suggestive content. That's pictures or text messages, and of course they send it to a boyfriend or a girlfriend. But as you and I know, once you send that picture and you put it on social media or an instant message or private message, it can easily be shared. 45% of kids under the age of 13 are already using Facebook daily, while 40% of children surveyed in that same age group are using Instagram. Even though the major social media platforms do have age restrictions that do not allow anyone younger than 13 to create an account, users are still creating accounts even though they're under the age of 13. Why is that? Well, that's because the social media platforms rely on the user to be truthful about their age. All they need is an email address. So let's have a quick discussion. Does your family have rules about social media? And what are your children allowed to have access to on the internet? Have you taken some time to talk to them about it? That might be the first powerful step to take in keeping your child safe online. Let's talk about social media platforms. Social media platforms can be fun. They do have some value in our lives. I know I'm active on social media, but it can be really problematic for teens and younger students, because it can seem like everybody's on it. So maybe I'm 11 years old and I see all my friends on Snapchat or Instagram, and I'm going to want an account. That applies, that everybody's doing it, everyone has an account. That applies a lot of pressure onto children and even onto parents. Social media, we know, can cause problems with students' self-image. And why is that? Well, they're constantly bombarded with images of other people their age showing off their bodies, taking on suggestive sexual poses, showing off their latest clothes and activities. Social media platforms really do set the stage for some serious bullying issues, because people can create anonymous accounts or they can pretend to be people that they're not. Why aren't parents monitoring their children online? Well, one of the biggest challenges is that it is so time consuming. So according to the Mott's Children's Hospital poll conducted in 2021, 39% of parents reported that it was too time consuming to constantly monitor their children's activity on the internet. And I completely understand that sentiment, but when you look at what the potential harms are, what kids can get into, it is definitely worth the time to supervise and really closely monitor what kids do online. 21% of those parents also said that they were unable to find information that they needed to set up parent controls. So in this presentation, we will be providing some resources to help you find those ways and those instructions on how to monitor devices. Even when parental controls are installed, 32% of children find ways to get around those parental controls. So there doesn't seem to be a very easy answer. So let's talk about some tips. In the next few slides, we'll cover some ways that you can increase your level of supervision. Consider establishing some family rules for the use of online capable computers and devices. Now, that just means we're having a conversation. Because think about it, in the past, many households never had a computer, or if they did, it was a big machine that sat in a central location so that the whole family could use it. But today, the internet can be found in many places: tablets, game consoles, laptops, smartphones. And so many of these devices are so small, it makes it very easy for kids to use them without their parents' supervision. Let's talk about appropriate times. Are your children allowed to use, or do they have access after bedtime? And by bedtime, I really am talking about parents' bedtime. So while you're asleep, you may assume that your child is asleep and not on their device. Can they use it while they're doing homework? How about during family meals? Those all might be some areas where you start to create some rules and some guidelines for your student. Teachers are reporting an increase in students falling asleep in class, and we suspect that students are staying up very late after their parents are asleep to use their devices. Many students cannot resist the temptation of using their device well into the night, making the next morning very difficult for them in class. These images were taken from an Instagram group that focuses on catching students sleeping in class. It is a very good idea to establish rules so that your children put their electric devices in a central location away from their bedroom when it's time to go to bed. Many parents have had to resort to locking these devices up because students often sneak and grab them and take them back to their bedrooms. There's no better way to keep an eye on things than to be able to wander up and casually say, "Hey, what are you doing? What website is that? Who are you chatting with?" It's not a good idea to allow your child to have unmonitored access to the internet behind a closed door. An even worse idea would be to have them have access behind a locked door. Periodically and sit and look at your child's browser history. It's important to know how to look at internet history on a device, but remember, even this isn't 100% effective. It is possible to erase history or delete certain information from that history. And again, I would remind you that if you see YouTube, remember that YouTube can be appropriate, and there is a way to set YouTube so that the adult content is filtered out. I'll leave a link to some instructions in the description of this video below. Ask questions. That is a great tip. So ask questions. Ask them, who are you communicating with? Which websites are your favorite? Which ones are you going to? Try to keep it as a conversation. Keep the conversation positive, or at least neutral. If your only message is, "You're always on the computer, you use it too much," or "Don't look at that website," it becomes a point of tension, and the kids won't come to you when they see something that is upsetting or confusing to them. And then go the next mile and do regular checks to make sure that you're getting the whole truth. Learn how to use that browser history function to see which sites they've been to. How can you protect your child? Well, you're doing it now. Being informed is really important. Another important step is to be very aware about your child's use of smartphones and other internet-capable devices. You could pay for a monitoring service. There is going to be a link in the description below with more information about those monitoring services like Bark and Net Nanny. In extreme cases, you can also install software on your child's phone that monitors everything they do. In the next few slides, we're going to look at some of those parental controls offered by the most common mobile phone companies. Remember that even these are not 100% effective. Students can often find ways to access inappropriate content. But before we look at parental controls, let me ask you a very important question. Does your child really need a smartphone? Many parents feel that it's necessary to give their children a cell phone for safety reasons and for the convenience of being able to call them and text message them. These are really valid reasons to give them a phone, but the unlimited access to the internet is not appropriate for most children. There's many options when it comes to phones. You don't have to give them a smartphone and buy a data plan. In the slide above, you can see 5 options for dumb phones, which is to say that they have no ability to access the internet, but they still allow your child to be able to call you and text message with you. AT&T offers something called Secure Family for $7.99 a month. There'll be more information in the description below about what their parental controls actually do. Comcast also has something that allows you to pause the internet whenever you want, as well as schedule time. And I'd recommend that if you are already with Comcast, you look at that option. My favorite, personally, because we use the Verizon plan, is the Verizon Smart Family, which is $9.99 a month, or it's also included with the Smart Family phone plan. But it has a lot of features that let you control when kids can access the internet, can control what apps they download. It is a very powerful tool. The Internet Watch Foundation is a foundation dedicated to creating an internet free from child sex abuse and creating safe places for children and adults to use the internet. If you're interested in more information about that organization, please visit their website, and I'll leave the link in the description below. We encourage you to check out the resources in the description of this video, and you might want to start by visiting the internetsafety101.org site. Let me show you what that looks like. It has a lot of information about the dangers like that we've covered, but it also talks about Prevention 101, about parental control tools. It has demonstrations, it has links to the service providers, and then also to some businesses. These are, of course, you have to pay for, but there are lots of different services that allow you to monitor and, well, some would say spy on your kids, but it's important to keep our students safe. Thank you for watching. We certainly hope that this presentation was helpful.